All right, folks, it's 1:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll continue to let folks in as they trickle in here. I want to do a quick introduction of myself. I'm Mason Secreti. I work here at the SPC, work under the Water Resource Center. We primarily focus on flooding, stormwater, water quality, and general environmental issues. I'd like to welcome you to the 2024 kickoff to the SPC Water Resource Center webinar series. We're pleased to host Beth Uhler at the Center for Watershed Protection, Pennsylvania Director. Beth is the Pennsylvania Director for the Center for Watershed Protection. She's been working in water resources for over 20 years, specializing in stormwater management, watershed planning, GIS solutions, and wetland science and permitting. Her expertise is in developing and implementing stormwater management programs for local governments, NPDES, MS4 permitting, and stormwater management policy and regulation. Acting as an intergovernmental liaison between local, state, and federal governments, she currently serves as a member of the PA's Water Resources Advisory Committee. And she also holds a Bachelor of Science in Geoenvironmental Studies from Shippensburg University. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get them answered after her presentation. And let's give it up for Beth.
Thanks, Mason. I just wanted to turn my camera on for a minute to say hello to everyone, and thanks for joining the webinar today. And thanks to the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission for inviting me to be a part of their Water Resource Center webinar series. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and turn my camera off. And as Mason said, feel free to enter questions in the chat as you go along, and do my best to field them and or answer them at the end. So here we go. Also, please let me know if you have any audio issues or anything like that as we go along, and type that in the chat too. Okay, so today we're here to talk about municipalities primarily collaborating for stormwater management, and particularly when it comes to meeting MS4 permitting requirements. I work for the Center for Watershed Protection. I'm the Pennsylvania Director. I've been at the center for not very long, just over a year now. I have a lot of experience in stormwater and MS4, as Mason mentioned. As an organization, we're a national nonprofit that's been around for quite some time. I think since 1992 at this point, which to me seems not that long ago, but in the scheme of things, it's a long time now. We have a mission to advance clean water resources with healthy ecosystems. And we have kind of four main program areas: research, training, membership, and watershed stormwater services. So we will, as a nonprofit, apply for and obtain grants through agencies like EPA and fund our own research. And then also we'll coordinate and partner with other state and local jurisdictions and provide technical service and consulting services directly to them as well. We have about 22 staff. We've been remote for 10 years, fully remote. We are headquartered in Maryland, and we stay with offices in Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, and South Carolina, and Michigan. We basically just have staff kind of scattered about the eastern half of the country for the most part. Okay, so today, agenda. We are going to compare Pennsylvania to other states just in general, both from kind of a local government framework perspective, and then also from MS4 regulated community standpoint. And we'll give a background on what MS4 is. So for those of you here that maybe not as familiar with MS4, I'll stop using the acronym, but it's Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Program. So storm sewer system is in the four S's. And it's in a permit that more population dense communities are required to have if the U.S. designated population density criteria boundary extends into, it's called your urban area, extends into their jurisdiction. Did an inventory of all the regional collaborations in Pennsylvania. So There are many regional collaborations that work together that are multi-sector. These are focusing around municipalities that are specifically working together primarily to address the NPDES MS4 requirements. And I'll review some of those examples in detail, and then share a framework for collaboration that's kind of evolved out of that interview process. And then review some challenges and benefits that, in speaking with all these different collaborations throughout the state, the common threads that, some things may be anticipated, some things may not be anticipated, and then tools moving forward if there are jurisdiction municipalities working or interested in kind of creating similar frameworks. Background on the MS4 program. This is an old map from EPA. They have not updated it, but this is what's on their website. It's showing phase one MS4s, which are in green. Those are the larger communities. So populations of 100,000 or more with municipal separate storm sewer systems. And then the blue is showing phase two, or the small communities, which in Pennsylvania, that's the majority of the regulated community. So most municipalities, when they have an MS4 permit in Pennsylvania, it is phase two. So sometimes I think we hear a lot about this program as an unfunded mandate, and why us? And we're the only ones that have to do it. Well, it's not just a Pennsylvania specific thing. It's not just a EU thing. It's a national program. And I think this is interesting because it doesn't look like it takes a lot of the land area of the country as far as the municipalities nationwide that have MS4 permits. It's only 4% of the land area. But that actually is about over 80% of the population. So it's truly kind of, it's a good statistic showing that this program is really designed to manage the impacts of stormwater management from urban areas and in turn things like impervious surface from urban areas. So there are 6,695 phase two MS4s nationally. And we'll go into Pennsylvania in a little bit more detail. We all know, we're from Pennsylvania, so we all know what our government framework is. But just to put it in perspective, we're a large state, land area-wide, so we have 2,560 municipalities. And so we always talk about this when it comes to stormwater management, but of course, watershed boundaries extend beyond these jurisdictions. And so it makes addressing certain MS4 permit requirements challenging, and then also more expensive. This is just showing of the municipalities, those that have MS4 permits throughout the state. So as you can see, this would be the current permit term. In pink, we have those that have a general permit. Blue is individual permits. And then the yellowish orange color are those that have a waiver, so don't technically have to comply with the MS4 permit, but are on DEP's radar, we'll say. And then everything outside of that in gray is the non-regulated community. So this might not look like a lot of the state, like you're talking about area-wise, but it is actually 1,059 permittees. Now, this does count some non-municipal entities like state-funded universities or military bases and that kind of thing. But there are that many. That's if you remember the first statistic I put up there, 6,695 phase two MS4 permittees nationwide. Pennsylvania has a good chunk of that. Now, New Jersey is pretty highly regulated as well. But the biggest difference is that every single municipality in New Jersey has an MS4 permit. And so in Pennsylvania, we're highly segmented in terms of who's regulated and who's not. And that can make working together challenging when your neighbor may not have, the same requirements as you. And on a municipal scale, the regulatory requirement is really a driver towards municipalities wanting to work together, wanting to work collaboratively and look for cost-effective solutions. And then, we see our neighbors in Delaware and Maryland, And, Maryland, with a county-based government structure, there's just way more opportunity to not have to kind of work in a small microcosm and implement more cost-effective projects and have more options when you're working with a bigger land area. So a review of the program components here in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure how many of you that are attending have an MS4 permit or know what it is, but the program itself is designed to control or minimize pollution from stormwater runoff from municipally owned surfaces. So that would be roads, and that's through roads and public works facilities, and then it's regulated at the point of the outfall. So really, it's looking at your municipally owned storm sewer systems, municipally owned roads, and other municipally owned facilities like public works and things like that. And there are 6 minimum control measures, and these minimum control measures are part of the federal program nationwide. So this is not unique, but it's required for every MS4 permit in Pennsylvania as well. And then in addition, depending on where your outfalls discharge, what types of streams they discharge to, and what their impairments are, you might have some additional requirements like pollutant reduction plans, total maximum daily load plans, pollutant control measures. Really, and everything's required to be reported to DEP annually by September 30th in an annual MS4 status report. And DEP administers the program statewide in Pennsylvania, and EPA is the federal kind of enforcing agency, and it is a federal requirement. So really, I think everybody, that's in a part of the program is kind of hears about the rumors of EPA coming to do audits or DEP to do inspections, but really EPA is, DEP is trying to get voluntary compliance. And any EPA comes in to make sure that the municipalities are complying and making sure that DEP is just implementing an efficient state-run program. To go a little bit more detail about what a TMDL plan is, a total maximum daily load plan and a pollutant reduction plan, versus what pollutant control measures are. Really, TMDL plans and pollutant reduction plans are plans that address sediment and or nutrient stream impairments. So if municipality discharges to streams that have sediment or nutrient impairments, then they have to actually propose projects to reduce sediment and nutrient impairments. So they're actually shovels in the ground. These are design and implementation projects. Whereas pollutant control measures are there for municipalities that have stormwater discharges and outfalls that discharge to streams that are impaired for metals, pH, from abandoned mine drainage, pathogens, or PCB impairments. And that is really more of a research and enforcement exercise. And this area right here is really where municipalities started taking the program a little bit more seriously, especially with the TMDL plans and the pollutant reduction plans, because a significant more amount of money was needed to be spent in order to meet these objectives. So a little bit of the history of the program. The phase 2 small MS4 permit started in 2003. It's supposed to be a 5-year permit cycle like all the other NPs and ES permits, or NIFTs, you might hear people say. But it was extended for 5 years for many reasons. And so it ended up being 10 years. And it originally started with implementing best management practices under the 6 minimum control measures. So not best management practices in the sense of an actual project like a rain garden or something like that, but kind of more of like a best practice. It was were things like education and outreach, doing storm drain stenciling, starting to do your outfall mapping and things like that. And a lot of documentation. And then in the second permit round, it was a 5-year permit cycle. It was 2013 and 2018. It was a continuation of those minimum control measures, maybe adding a little bit more requirements onto that. But then also of note is adding the total maximum daily load requirements and the Chesapeake Bay PRP. So if you didn't have a TMDL or you weren't located in the Chesapeake Bay, then that didn't necessarily affect you as much. It was kind of business as usual. In addition, the total maximum bill load requirements in the Chesapeake Bay pollutant reduction plan in that second permit round didn't have any specific thresholds or requirements that municipalities had to meet. It was just like, okay, develop a plan to address your TMDL, but it didn't have a time frame or percentage goals of what amount needs to be met by when. And then fast forward to present, where we are now is permit round 3, which has subsequently been administratively extended. And they've added the pollutant reduction plans, the pollutant control measures, and then also has clarified what's required for those things. And as a result, municipalities have kind of had no choice but to really propose plans, get those plans approved, and begin implementing. And many municipalities have already ended their 5-year implementation period at this point. So TMDL plans, as a refresher, these are required for streams that really TMDLs for siltation or nutrients that are EPA approved. They have to reduce sediment by 10%, or if it's nutrients, then phosphorus by 5% over a 5-year implementation period. And then there has to be a plan for addressing long-term objectives. And those are some project examples right there. The reduction plans, the difference is these don't have an EPA approved TMDL, so there's no long-term objectives. These streams are just listed as impaired on our 303D list in the integrated report for siltation and nutrients. So the plan has to be to reduce sediment by 10% over a 5-year implementation period, or if it's nutrients only, then it would be phosphorus by 5%. And it's a similar types of project. So it's really the goal of accomplishing the same things. The components include public participation, mapping, identifying your points of concern, determining existing loading, selecting BMPs to achieve a minimum required reduction, which is 10% for sediment, and identifying funding mechanisms. And then, of course, responsible parties for operations and maintenance. So I think we resulted in a lot of challenges when municipalities started going at this process by themselves, especially in finding project locations. And then also the cost of implementation were two big ones. So about a year ago, I started talking and researching with a lot of people, just trying to figure out who are the multi-municipal collaborations that are addressing MS4 requirements in the state, and have come up with this list, which is not comprehensive by any means. And there are certainly groups out there that are addressing things that are very peripheral to MS4, but maybe aren't, their primary objective isn't MS4, meeting MS4 requirements. And so I know Allegheny County Conservation District is involved with watershed planning on a multi-municipal level. And I know Watersheds of South Pittsburgh is also doing an integrated watershed plan as well. And so there's a lot of other efforts that are related, but maybe this is kind of more geared specifically towards MS4. Anyway, if anybody's aware of anything here that I'm missing, I would love to know, so I can reach out and contact those people and also kind of interview them as we begin to kind of collect information and develop tools for groups that are interested in working together in the future. So this list here, that's kind of like here we're showing it geographically. I guess I didn't go into the geographic aspect of things, but there's the majority of these groups are actually located in the Chesapeake Bay. And then, a lot of the ones that are located in the Chesapeake Bay are kind of structured at the county level. And in the eastern part of the state, we have a lot of multi-municipal groups addressing MS4 requirements that are a little bit more watershed based and maybe focused around TMDLs, as opposed to kind of an overall arching county based collaboration. In the western part of the state, we have Southwest Butler Planning Group, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail, and they're also unique. So they fall into these kind of buckets. The first bucket here is these kind of informal coalitions that are, working together kind of with no intergovernmental agreements to address requirements like public education and outreach, public involvement, participation, and employee training, and maybe also providing an outlet for municipalities to get together and exchange ideas, but not actually having kind of formal structure and agreement associated with it. And the Christina Watershed Municipal Partnership we'll talk about in more detail. Our Cameron Watershed Conservancy is a watershed group that has a great kind of program that outlines, what municipalities get if they pay into a quote unquote membership. The reason why I've separated out Berks County MS4 Steering Committee as kind of standalones, they provide similar services. Oops, sorry about that. To the group number one, as in that they're doing things like the public education and outreach, public involvement participation, but they do have intergovernmental agreements, and as a result, it's like the administrative lead resides within the county. And then group three, all of these multi-municipal collaborations have intergovernmental agreements and are addressing joint pollutant reduction requirements. So they all have joint pollutant reduction plans. I added a plus next to the collaborations that are also doing other things to address it. The minimum control measure requirements. And I put in bucket number 4, these two groups that were kind of formed to either address flooding concerns or overarching water resource concerns first and foremost, but have added MS4 as, or considering adding MS4 as something that they intend to address because they realize that is a, incentive or a driver for a lot of the communities that are participating. And then number 5 is authorities, existing sanitary authorities who that have added this stormwater to their authority and also charge fees to all the residents to implement a robust stormwater program. And so Wyoming Valley has many. We'll talk about that in more detail. Many municipalities that are involved with the authority. And then Dallas area, I think, has maybe 3 to 5 municipalities that partner, but also they charge a fee to all the residents within those municipalities who are part of the authority. It's important to acknowledge that you can work together collaboratively in Pennsylvania without being an authority or without charging a stormwater fee. A lot of these municipalities are paying for the collaborative effort out of a general fund or capital fund, that type of thing. So that's important to note that you don't have to really dive in and go full on embracing a whole different authority. You're creating that level of organization. You can kind of start with baby steps and maybe stay with baby steps if that works for you. Okay, this is just who we're gonna highlight in detail as we move forward today. Starting with the Christina Watershed Municipal Partnership. Christina Watershed Municipal Partnership is primarily located in Chester County, Pennsylvania, in the southeastern portion of the state. The Christina River Basin has a total maximum daily load. And the group was originally formed back in 2003 to try to get ahead of the total maximum daily load requirements. Turns out the Christina River TMDL was pretty complex, and the group struggled to kind of come up with a collaborative way of working together within I guess it would be the current permit terms framework in coordination with the EPA. So it remains a group that municipalities pay, ranging $450 to $950 per year for education and outreach. In a report summaries, they have a website that links to all of the participating municipalities' websites, and also workshops for the public as well as employee training. And so they don't have a formal agreement. And the partnership is led by a watershed group called Brandywine Red Clay Alliance, but they also have kind of a planning team that's associated with it that has other NGO partners as well. So the number of municipalities as part of this collaboration is 38. And they try to meet quarterly, and they'll give presentations on kind of like the latest topics. And that also allows municipalities to be able to exchange ideas. And I think that's a benefit that I've heard through a lot of the partnerships that maybe was unanticipated, that they really like the opportunity to gather and see what their neighbors are doing. The Berks County MS4 Steering Committee is another collaboration. This is led administratively by the Berks County Planning Commission, Ashley Showers. There's 39 municipalities that are involved with it, and it's located within Berks County, which is also on the eastern part of the state within the Delaware River watershed. And they were established in 2013, and they charge their municipalities a flat fee of $500 per year. And it includes meetings, education and outreach events and training. They provide some YouTube channel content for education and outreach and an annual report summary. But they do have an intergovernmental agreement as part of this. It's also important to note that the fees that are paid by the municipalities, in part, pay for the administrative role, maybe not fully in some cases maybe fully. So if there are groups out there, especially on an accounting level, that are hesitant to take on this capacity because they have to, they don't have the resources available, the fees that kind of fund the program also fund your time to organize and facilitate meetings. Next is York County Stormwater Consortium, and they are located in the Chesapeake Bay. I think that in terms, if you follow, I guess, the world of stormwater at all, they tend to get a lot of attention for implementation. Their primary function is an action plan. Not the entire county participates. Not the entire county is regulated by MS4. But there's 45 municipalities that are members, and I believe that there are at least one or two that only have a waiver or have no permit at all, that just wanted to be a part of the movement and kind of reducing pollutants to the Chesapeake Bay. So the average cost for municipality per year for member municipalities in the York County Stormwater Consortium is $4,200 for, say, those that don't have any requirements at all, ranging up to $224,000 it was at first the development of the pollutant reduction plan, and now the implementation of the pollutant reduction plan, which, from what I understand, they're publishing their 5-year requirements. Which is quite a feat, because it was challenging for many people to be able to do that within the time period. And I think working collaboratively really gave them the opportunity to achieve, the deadline that was mandated by DEP. They do have an intergovernmental agreement. Anytime there's a joint pollutant reduction plan involved, DEP requires an intergovernmental agreement. And I should also mention cost range that's there. The variation they developed a cost funding formula that was, and depending on the collaboration, and I can't speak exactly to York County, but it may be a formula that's based off of the lengths of impaired streams within the municipality, the amount of urban area within the municipality, things like that, or like planning area that was used to develop the joint pollutant reduction plan, in order to make sure that everybody is kind of equitably contributing. And then similarly, there's also a credit formula for how they're going to spread the pollutant reduction credits, the sediment and nutrient credits. So it would be proportional to the cost sharing formula. Okay. Southwest Butler Stormwater Planning Group. This is kind of more in your neck of the woods, the audience that the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission has. And this is in Butler County, and it's 10 municipalities. I like to emphasize here that they are unique in that they're the lead kind of entity is a third-party consultant who is a retired township manager. And so I think that forming a multi-municipal collaboration, it really is about kind of relationships and trust, and the lead administrative person could have multiple roles. And it could be kind of like many different entities. And so that's why I think it's not a one size fits all model for everyone. I would like to say, oh yes, the way to do this is to go to your county planning commission and say, we would like to start a multi-municipal organization. It's just, it's just not that simple in terms of, the region of the state, and, who has the capacity and who has the kind of time and ability to kind of lead these organizations. And I think that Jerry Andre was also kind of a champion and getting it started. So again, the champion and getting a group going may not be the lead, but it's kind of important to have both of those roles, whether it's one and the same or not. Okay, so we're in Butler County. We're established in 2020, and the primary function is flood reduction. But when I spoke with the Southwest Butler Stormwater Planning Group, they were like, we realize that some of these big flood reduction projects that we would like to undertake are also going to be beneficial for MS4. And so I think we're going to take a look at that in more detail as well. And so all those groups have intergovernmental agreements as well. And they've been successful in applying for and obtaining grant funding to address the flooding issues, and then potentially for some of the communities, MS4. The fifth bucket is the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. The lead organization is the Sanitary Authority, so they have stormwater like tacked on as a component to their authority. There's 35 municipalities. This group also gained some attention statewide when they enacted their fee, because there was news clips going around of enraged citizens at first, adding the fee to their existing sanitary authority. But that has since quieted, and they provide a lot of services to their member municipalities and residents. And so they have a regional stormwater management program and a joint pollutant reduction plan. And so I would say because of the consistent funding source, they are able to fund, I think, like 7 in-house staff that are devoted to managing the stormwater program. And they have an inlet, they call it a catch basin cleaning request program, where on their website, their member municipalities can submit up to a certain amount of requests to have the authority clean out or vacuum out their catch basins a certain amount per year. In addition to an outreach and really kind of spearheading planning for logistics on the next MS4 permit cycle and things like that. Of course, this level, they have to have an intergovernmental agreement on their own entity as an authority, so they amend that. And then the average cost is per ratepayer. So by property owner, they have $56.40 per ratepayer per year. So that is, when in the scheme of things, $56 per year for kind of a full-fledged service like that doesn't sound like a bad deal to me. So I wanted to just throw this one in as kind of a caveat. As part of this current MS4 permit cycle, PennDOT solicited municipalities to partner with across the state. Oh, it looks like my image is a little cut off there, but so they were looking to meet their pollutant reduction requirements and TMDL requirements by partnering with municipalities, as municipalities and PennDOT were able to both take credit for the same project. So I don't want to say it's double dipping, but it's kind of double dipping. But that was allowable by DEP. And as a result, it's kind of like almost like a 50-50 cost share when a municipality would sign on to a project. Meanwhile, they also did these contracts by major river basin as paid for performance, and they administered the contracts. So when they asked municipalities if they wanted to partner, the level of like time commitment, even internally from municipalities, were pretty minimum. And so it ended up being, a good model. I mean, even if it was a significant amount of money that a municipality had to spend to contribute and participate, they were able to, oftentimes the projects were so big and cost effective to meet all of their requirements in kind of one shot and didn't really have to do much implementation on their own. I know one of the other multi-municipal groups that are working together to do a joint MDL plan, Paxton Creek, they also signed on to do a project with PennDOT through this municipal partnership program. And that met the majority of their reduction requirements. And so, there is something to be said for this to acknowledge. And of course, there's formal agreements kind of going between PennDOT and the municipalities, and then also, of course, the contract between PennDOT and the contractor that's awarded the paid for performance aspect of things. So PennDOT's chugging right along with that. And I think originally when they were soliciting participation for municipalities for this program, it was really scary and intimidating, and a lot of times a history of strained relationships between PennDOT and municipalities in certain cases when it comes to maintaining infrastructure and whose responsibility is this and whose responsibility is that kind of thing. But I think this was really successful if you talk with any of the municipalities that participated. And if anybody on here had participated, that would be interesting to hear what your perspective is too. All right. So after speaking with all of these different groups, a framework for collaboration started emerging, and thought I should probably document this and share this with other people. If you look at kind of any models for collaboration, it doesn't have to necessarily be a multi-municipal model. It follows a very similar framework. It's anytime you're working collaboratively or, on any project in general, you don't want to just kind of get together and say, yeah, let's work together. Let's do this. We need to have clear direction and identify what your purpose, goals, and objectives are, and who the stakeholders are. So, you want to make sure you're on the same page. Are you going to adjust the minimum control measures, public education and outreach, and kind of, start with those aspects? Or do you really want to work together on implementing joint reduction plans or, maybe just a specific project? So making sure everybody's on the same page, because ultimately all of this would need to be documented in a formal agreement before it's enacted and considered. And then who are your stakeholders? Are you going to go about this on a county level? And kind of solicit all municipalities within the county to be participating. There's going to be, who's your audience that you ideally like to be a part of the collaboration, and assign roles. So, a lot of times with something like this, collaboration starts, there may be a little bit of like pushing and shoving. This was my idea, or this was my idea, and I want to be the lead, and then if people are afraid to kind of, you don't want to step on each other's toes in a sense. So, but it's important that somebody's assigned to be the lead, whether or not you don't want to step on somebody's toes. It all has to be kind of acknowledged, and you might have a bunch of different types of leads. So you might have an administrative, you might have a technical lead. And a lot of these intergovernmental agreements will specify, the County Planning Commission, for example, as the administrative lead. And in fact, one of the groups, the Redevelopment Authority, is the administrative lead. They don't really have a lot of technical knowledge about the MS4 program, but they had their resources as far as being able to administer the finances of the group, and also having staff member to be able to plan and coordinate, their regular meetings. So, I guess that's something to acknowledge there. And then sometimes these groups will kind of designate an appointed engineer, or specific partners in their formal agreements, and what their roles might be. Non-governmental organizations or nonprofits are always wondering, how can I participate? What's our role in a multi-municipal collaboration, especially when it's addressing an MS4? The municipalities are the ones that are on the hook for the requirement. So there's a little bit of a liability there. But there certainly is a role for NGOs. And sometimes it could be, in the case of the Christina Watershed Municipal Partnership, they don't have formal agreements, but they are the lead entity that plans meetings and kind of manages the entire process. Then conversely, watershed groups, especially local watershed organizations, are great for connecting the multi-municipal collaboration with project locations for joint pollutant reduction plans, and also building relationships with those property owners in order to be able to implement those projects. So I recently kind of hosted a panel of some of the representatives from the collaborations that I shared earlier today. And, one of the groups was Gail Farmer from Wissahickon Trails, who's involved with the Wissahickon TMDL. And, she made a great point. And she has the experience from both stormwater projects, but also trails, that, when it comes to project implementation, you have to start building relationships with property owners before you want something from them. And so that's kind of a good example of why certain groups are really good at those sorts of roles and relationships, especially on the local NGO side of things. So as a next step, you want to engage your regulators as you start getting the framework together and say, hey, this is what we plan on doing. You need to be open and honest with them. They'll give you feedback. They might say, hey, I can't really say until you need to do the whole thing and show me, which is another deterrent for municipalities to engage in a multi-municipal collaboration, because they don't want to spend any money or take any risks until DEP says it's okay. And sometimes DEP doesn't want to say it's okay until they see what they're saying okay to. So that ends up being a challenge. So, as part of this process, part of what Center for Watershed Protection, what we'd like to do is to kind of provide this framework for municipalities and get DEP plan ahead of time, so that if groups are interested in forming a collaboration, they can feel pretty secure that they're following something that's going to be acceptable to the regulators. Developing a cost of funding strategy, depending on what your going to be funding is it's important. That's going to be part of your formal agreement as well, and outlined in there, either in it or as an attachment. That would also include how you're going to share credits if it involves the joint fleet introduction plan, whether it's sediment and or nutrient credits. And like I said, a lot of groups have kind of done that based on how much they're contributing to the stream impairment, so how much urban area or how much impaired streams or how many outfalls discharged to the impaired streams, things like that. Another thing to note is in one of the collaborations that I spoke with, Wyomissing, I believe it was, they actually, as an incentive for them to join, some of the larger, more rural municipalities that had lens requirements got because they didn't need to collaborate with the smaller, geographically more that the they're to look outside of therapies, and it really understood that was the only way to incentive a particular situation. So out to general public, and of course, your public involvement education. That's required. Things like say that you want to as a leader, a champion. That might involve going to what you so and that in order to get their buy-in, because ultimate agreement and that's associated measures or joint reduction plan. Some of the challenges that we frequently hear from these groups working together is that the decision-making speed is slower, because you're dealing with more than one municipality, or you have to wait for your regularly scheduled meeting, which, in the intergovernmental agreements, usually state a meeting frequency and kind of a board or a committee that's elected to lead those meetings. And so decisions are made at those meetings. So instead of saying like a municipality just going, oh yeah, we're gonna move forward with this, you have to present it at the collaborations meeting. Sometimes they may be able to make decisions there. Sometimes they may have to take it back to their respective municipalities, board or council meetings and get their buy-in and then come back to the next meeting. So it can slow down the decision-making speed in some cases. And when people complain about active participation from all members, which is true with any organization or any group. And then the biggest challenge too is municipal staff turnover and then election cycles and the constant re-education of, what their group is, what their intentions are, objectives are, and kind of getting that buy-in. You'd think you only need to do that once and you're off and running. But it's a constant education process. And then some groups may also have time limits on their intergovernmental agreements to giving them kind of, coincide maybe with the permit or the PRP, the reduction plan implementation cycle. And so, that also requires another round of getting buy-in from the group. But you can also look at it as an opportunity to kind of see if there are other municipalities that are willing to join at that time as well. So this wasn't intentional, but the list of benefits far outweigh the challenges now. But they really do. So it's on. The biggest thing is I said decision making speed slower, but it does save time and money in the scheme of things in terms of project implementation. Um, Even for the minimum control measures when you're doing, one employee training for a group of 20 municipalities versus, them having to do each of their own. A joint pollutant reduction planning. I know that there are some of the collaborations that at the time to quantify the amount of money that was being saved by being part of the collaboration, just because your dollar goes so much further. And if you're interested in some of those statistics, I can connect you with those people. I don't have them on hand right personally, but I do know that they've gone through that exercise. It expands potential project locations, right? This is one of the biggest benefits, one of the biggest challenges, especially when the reduction plan was municipalities finding where to put projects. This would be the case even in areas that are addressing flooding. It's challenging to find, and a lot of times municipalities feel relegated to using property that they own, and that really limits where you can do projects. So kind of expanding beyond your jurisdictional boundaries helps that. Working with your NGO partners. So it can be boots on the ground and help with relationship building. Property owners helps a lot as well. And then it enables bigger and more meaningful projects as, also when you're pooling resources. You might say, wouldn't it be nice to get all this done in one shot and spend, do like and then $1 million project. That just seems daunting for one municipality to undertake. But when you partner with and then municipalities, you might even be looking at expanding the scope, and all of a sudden you're doing a much larger project that's going to have a much more significant impact on water quality and downstream, potentially, depending on the project type, even reducing flooding. Another benefit, I mentioned this earlier, a lot of the groups said that it offers the opportunity for municipalities to communicate, connect, and share resources more readily. And I think that was a benefit that people, not only just the administrative leads, they note that the municipalities themselves, that the representatives from those municipalities are, something that they're very. Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you, Beth. It looks like your screen isn't sharing at the moment, but we can hear you. We can hear you loud.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Let's see here. All right. Well, let me try sharing again. Resume. Let's see if that works. It's not something that.
Looks good.
Does that work?
Sorry, we got the slides back. Thank you.
I'm gonna say, not like crazy exciting slides, but it's better to look at that than nothing. Okay. And I'm almost on the slides anyway, too. So just let me know if something happens again. I appreciate whoever popped that in the chat. Okay. So looking to the next permit cycle, I mentioned earlier that the current MPDS permit already expired in March 2023. So DEP extended it for another 24 months to March 15th, 2025. So that's general permits. Individual permits, if you have one and it's about to expire, you still have to go through an administrative renewal process, but your requirements shouldn't change until they come out with a new permit, which they have not yet. So anyways, that administrative extension doesn't impact any timelines, TMDL plan implementation, pollutant reduction plans, ordinances, etc. And DEP is to potentially consider improvements to facilitating multi-municipal collaboration in the next permit. I was part of a statewide works group that DEP put together to kind of collect input on the next MS4 permit. They shared with us some draft materials, and it's possible that there could be some real incentives for municipalities to work together. So if I leave you with anything today, it would be, now the time to really start thinking about that internally, and then also talking to your neighbors informally, and building the kind of foundation to potentially partner in the future. Here. And here's some tools that I just put together. DEP does have some resources on their website. DCED has an intergovernmental cooperation handbook, which is great. I know I'm missing some tools on here. We are in the process of developing some tools that will be very specific to this purpose for MS4 collaboration between municipalities, and then, potentially roles for other outside entities. So keep an eye out for that. I'm hoping that will be in the next, some of those tools will start rolling out in the next few months or so. And of course, until then, I'd be happy to take any questions. I apologize if my connection is a little bit blippy. But yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions now or anything like that.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Beth. That was fantastic. The presentation recording and PDF of the slides will be coming up on our website within the next week. We do have a couple more minutes here. I mean, we have the time slot till 3:00, but if anybody would like to ask some questions, feel free to unmute or type it in the chat.
No takers?
Actually, I have a question. This is Nicole Benoit from Pittsburgh Water Sewer Authority. And I was wondering if you could elaborate to the extent that you know on the direction that DEP is taking in the future with these collaborations. Are you seeing it based on particular areas, like by county? Are you seeing it by watersheds? Because some areas are going to have, or some MS4 areas are going to have, multiple watersheds that flow into their territories. So just wondered how that might look, if you have some insight.
Sure. Yeah. So interestingly enough, I've seen some draft materials, and there is, so the way that I look at it is that municipalities, say no matter what, it's going to have to be, they could present two options. You could work at a county level or you could work at a watershed level, but you're going to have to, if you're working at a county level, consider watersheds, right? Like there's probably no way that you're just going to be able to, especially for joint pollutant reduction plans. There's probably no way that DEP is going to say, okay, you could just work on a county level and just put projects, all in, the city of Pittsburgh, as opposed to an outlying municipality, or spreading the project through the Huck, say the Huck 14 size watersheds. But that was a question that I had when I saw it, because, when we're looking at collaborating on a certain size of watershed, that is prohibitive for collaboration. So to me, because I think what you're getting at, I have this one municipality in my head that I've worked with in the past. They have three or four Huck 14 boundaries within their municipality. So if it were only that you could collaborate on a Huck 14 scale, they would have to be a part of four different, collaborations. So in that sense, it almost makes more sense to have the collaboration structured on a county scale, but then develop a plan on a watershed basis, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense to you?
Sure. PWSA, we're in multiple watersheds, as you can imagine. And so trying to coordinate across, three different watersheds, groups that have different goals and such would be kind of difficult. So county level would be different, but there are quite a few MS4s entities in the county. So I'd be interested, if you get additional insight in the future, if you're able to share kind of any updates with the group, because just with the number of municipalities, that could make for some tough coordination.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of how many municipalities have MS4 summits in the county? Like, because I'm just thinking here, like,
Yeah. Nearly all, probably 85%.
And how many? I apologize, I don't know the number of municipalities in the county offhand.
Offhand, I don't either. But I could take a look, and maybe offline, I could catch up with you.
That would be
and take a look.
I was just gonna just kind of give an example. So, like York County, for example, they have 45, I think it was, municipalities that participate, and not all of the municipalities that have MS4 permits decided to join. But they did get some people that, well, I shouldn't state that, because I don't know that for sure. But like in all the collaborations, there's always some that there's some municipalities that don't want to join, and so they're able to coordinate successfully across that many municipalities. I guess the top of my head, I think Chester County has, maybe that's where I live, so it's easy for me to relate it to. But I think there's 60, 72 maybe municipalities, maybe 60 some have MS4 permits or something like that. So, and then thinking about maybe not all of them would join, it really starts with kind of developing that initial plan. And the plan would be identifying what your baseline requirements are by watershed within the county, and then how to structure the credits within each watershed within the county, per municipality. So it's just kind of just adding like another step. And I think good models would be York, and trying to think of another one that would be kind of a higher number. I guess Wyoming Valley would be one too. But one thing I can share is that in the work group, it was tossed around as a serious consideration to change the kind of the objective to address from sediment to volume, which some people may have heard being kicked around throughout the state as a result of that work group. But and the reasoning for that was to kind of be more consistent across DEPs and PDS, not MS4 programs, but programs in general, and then also the new post-construction stormwater manual. And so, I guess what the consideration would be, that would be a volume management objective as opposed to like a sediment reduction objective. So in that sense, the framework for collaboration allows for a little bit more flexibility, as it's not directly tied to a local stream and fair bed necessarily, and they would broaden kind of the area that they would allow for project implementation more so than they have this permit term.
Hey, Beth, we did get a question in the chat. Glenn asked, what is HUC 14?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I should have said that. I knew it.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Hydrologic Unit Code 14. So basically USGS has different watershed sizes that they have delineated, and they have, actually off the top of my head, I shouldn't say like the different sizes, but 14 is kind of like that little small watershed size that DEP has allowed for kind of aggregation in previous permit terms. I think they may have allowed to go up to actually the next level, which would have been 10. So it's just basically, it's the relative size of a watershed. And I think the smaller the number, the bigger the watershed. But yeah, Google it. It's HUC, Hydrologic Unit Code USGS. That will, you'll see it. When you see it on a map, that'll help.
All right. We still have some time for questions. Give people
Oh, I saw another one there. How is MS4? How are MS4 areas determined? Okay, MS4 areas are determined by U.S. Census has what's called the urban area that they publish with each major census, and so for phase 2 small MS4s, this is the thing. So urban area is like a polygon layer. So if the urban area, like, and it's based on population density. So you'll see like splotches around Philadelphia, splotches around Pittsburgh, splotches around State College, like, and if a piece of that urban area extends into a municipality's boundaries, then they're automatically kind of considered for an MS4 permit. And then they have to kind of like address other criteria related to population, related to like stream impairment, and what they discharge to and whether they have TMDL streams. So if they have urban area within the boundary, they're at least going to have a waiver, if not a permit. Or other states using volume control. So Maryland uses what's called what they call impervious area restoration. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Nicole. And so it's kind of similar, like, I guess if you think about it, impervious area restored, they have to have an impervious area restoration plan. And so volume is kind of just taking it a little bit further, in the sense that, Maryland's also addressing a TMDL for sediment for the Chesapeake Bay, sediment nutrients. But their requirement is impervious acres restored or impervious areas restored, as opposed to like a sediment or like a land loading requirement, pollutant loading requirement. But to answer your question directly, I don't know offhand of another state that's using volume. How prevalent is illegal inlet dumping? Are there any studies or records? Well, that's a good question. Like, MS4 communities are required to keep those records anytime an illegal dumping in an inlet or an illicit discharge is noted. It should be reported to the municipality. The municipality has to keep that record and then report it to DEP. And so I think the way to start to figure out how many of them or how often would be a particular municipality. And I'm sure if you ask DEP for their records, they'd say, well, that's an MS4 community. Ask them. Because I don't think that they like aggregate the information that they get from the municipalities like that. But again, I can't say for sure. They might, if they're looking at restructuring the annual reporting process and doing it electronically through like their, I think it's Greenport website that some of the other general permits are going through. And if they do that, then they will be able to much easier quantify and report out things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question. And then municipalities' ordinances are there to, if you have an MS4 permit, it has to prohibit illicit discharges. And then, that's how municipalities enforce that happening. Yeah.
We did have a comment in here that is interesting, that MS4 is determined by population instead of watershed /C sewer maps. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. So this permit, the MS4 permit, municipal separate storm sewer permit, like I said, kind of in the beginning, I don't know if you remember that kind of statistic from the national map of the regulated MS4. The driver really is to kind of try to minimize impacts from the developed community, right? So like, we have a lot of historic development that can't be mitigated by the permitting that we have in place for new and redevelopment. And so this is my interpretation anyway, so don't like hold me to it. But so the MS4 permit is really, it's holding municipalities accountable and helping them to kind of mitigate some of the impacts that occur as a result of urbanization. And so, yeah. And I think since there's a legal framework that the permittee has to be based out of has to be the municipality. We do look at things at a watershed basis, but as far as like who is regulated, the permit itself it's based off of population density. The current MS4 program encourages multi-municipal collaboration. Will the changes encourage more strongly, or is there authority to make it a requirement? The changes that I've seen, Nicole, the potential changes that aren't out in draft form yet, so who knows what's going to happen between now and then, is actually like incentivizing collaboration in the sense that if municipalities are working collaboratively for volume management objective to address the stream impairments, they would get like a credit or reduction in what they have to implement over your permit cycle. And similar, looking at potentially incentivizing collaboration in sense that, like, if municipalities do a joint permit, taking it to that next level, offering an additional credit, reducing what the effective is in the 5-year permit term. So, the ultimate goal would not be it's not like it would be removed. It would just be extended out, like, another 5 years, another 5 years. But really, when it comes down to it, if that's something that the EP would consider, most municipalities would completely buy onto that. I don't want to say kick the can down the road mentality, but it may make things more manageable for certain groups.
It's Tom. Next plan to change a little bit. Should I come over, say around 3:00? It's out.
I don't think that's a question. Anybody else? I appreciate all the questions and comments. I was
plenty of
always fun to talk about that stuff. Yeah.
Still have a little bit of time here. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything, feel free to unmute or type it in the chat. Clearly, there's some lots of interest in this. So
I appreciate it, Mason and Cassie and everyone that joined today.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for giving this presentation and for the flexibility. Thank you so much. Sorry, guy, did someone have a comment?
Yeah, this is Nicole Benoit with PWSA. Just one other, and sorry if I missed this during the presentation. Could you confirm for the Southwest Butler Stormwater Planning Group, since with that being have like a Butler County area, do you know if they have multiple watersheds in that area and how they're addressing?
I don't know. No, I haven't talked to Jerry and with Stan from Cranberry for like a year now, or maybe it's been maybe I saw them. It's close to a year, I guess. They were primarily looking to address downstream flooding implications, and so MS4 was like a size thing that they were looking at the time to see, if we're doing flood mitigation projects, that's going to have a positive impact on MS4. And I think at the time they were still trying to figure out. Well, and I didn't talk to if they have an engineer that's appointed to their their group, but whether they were looking to kind of allocate credit or not. But yeah, that's a good question, and yeah, it would give me incentive to reconnect with them. And if you'd happen to connect with them in the meantime, certainly let me know.
That sounds good. Yeah, I wonder, just across these, of the 5 that you highlighted, which ones, if you don't mind just reviewing that, which ones were formed driven by MS4 as opposed to having other goals and then tacking MS4 on?
Yeah, I can give you that. So for the most part, it's everyone 1, 2, 3, and 5 are all kind of primarily driven by MS4. And this is my understanding of after I've interviewed them. Southwest Butler seemed to have formed for flooding, and Dawson County Water Resource Enhancement was also kind of comprehensive water resource collaboration with MS4 as components, I guess. Whereas, all of these groups are kind of primarily for the MS4. Now, Human Watershed Conservancy is a watershed organization that offers municipal services for MCMs as an aside. But other than that, these groups are all MS4 joint gluten reduction, either as a TMDL or gluten reduction requirement. Does that answer your question, Nicole?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Don't be shy. I would like to just remind everyone this presentation and recording will be posted on our website at spcwater.org, as well as PDFs of the presentation. Feel free to talk to us anytime, email us anytime, and keep your eyes peeled for more Water Resource Center webinars coming. Oh, we did. Got another question here. Is there a map of MS4 permits?
Yes, there is. It'll be in the presentation. It's very, so when you get a copy of that, you'll see it's going to be there. The slide. It's on DEP's website too. This is for 2019, so it should be relatively current. And feel free to shoot me an email afterwards if you have any lingering questions that end up coming up after this. Certainly would not mind responding or following up in that way. So
We had another question here. As the Center for Watershed Protection, do you research into trash collection technology such as booms and conveyor belts?
that is a good question. I don't know that we have a current research project going on about that. We do host a national conference every year, and I noticed that one of the speakers is going to be talking about that exact topic. It's in Kansas City, so if you want to look it up and travel to Kansas City, take a look. And I think I'm going to make sure I'm signed up for SPC and Water Resources email notifications too for the next the newsletter.
Yeah, we'll get you added. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Is there anything else? All right. Well, want to thank everyone for showing up today, and especially thank Beth for the great presentation and for dealing with our internal processes here. And definitely be on the lookout for new webinars coming up. And Definitely check out the Center for Watershed Protection and what they do at cwp.org. Check us out at spcwater.org. And final round of applause for Beth. Thank you. Thank you so much thank you for showing up and giving a great presentation today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Plug back.
I don't think I have anything coming up right now other than our national conference. Like I said, if anybody feels like taking a trip to Kansas City to see some great talks on stormwater watershed related things, we will be hosting people from all over the country, talks on technology, MS4, latest trends, emerging pollutants, all sorts of stuff. So that's in April. Check our website for that. It's probably the first thing you'll see.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.